A special meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust, Tuesday, September 28th at 4 o'clock. And our trust members are all present, so we're ready to go. Well, we have, I guess we're one trust member short. Frank McPherson didn't make it. Thank you. The first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the September 14th meeting. And those minutes have been distributed to you previously. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
We do need to make a correction to the minutes. In the minutes, it notes that Mr. Lopez is present and voting, and he was not present at that meeting, so we need to change that on each one of the actions.
Yeah, it states he's absent under call to order, but then it's listed as voting.
Is voting.
So there's a little inconsistency.
I was trying to do that.
Nice try, David. We just wanted to get paid, that's all. Okay, with that change, to reflect correctly Mr. Lopez's attendance or lack thereof, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
A motion made and seconded. We use a machine. Cast your votes. And the item is approved. Thank you. The next item is to ratify some claims, and they have been provided to you previously. They all deal with funding through the TIF programs. There is no GALT bond money on this particular item. Are there any questions or comments on any of the claims that we have to ratify?
Move ratification.
Second.
Have motion made and second to ratify the claims. All those in favor, cast your votes. And the motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, item 4, item is for individual consideration. Item 4A is has to do with our continuing work on Project 180. Kathy, you have anything specific you'd like to say about this?
Just to comment that this is the contract for architectural and engineering services for the redesign of Bicentennial Park. The fee is $425,000 with PDG, the Planning Design Group. And just as an aside, Elliott & Associates is a sub-consultant to this consultant and has been working with us, and we've already had a couple of steering committee meetings to begin work on the redesign of Bicentennial Park.
Okay, and it does also include the City Hall landscaping.
It does. It includes all the areas around City Hall as well.
And you might, for the sake of those people who may be watching and are not familiar with the downtown layout, describe where Bicentennial Park is.
Bicentennial Park is the park that's in front of the Civic Center Music Hall. So right now the designs are everything from the steps leading up to the Civic Center Music Hall on the east side of the Music Hall to City Hall, all the way to the east side of City Hall at Hudson. So that entire area will be redesigned and re-landscaped as a part of this design work.
Are there any additional questions or comments on item A? Larry?
Mr. Chairman, get some education, if you would, Kathy. In the work with the Ford Center, I came away with the impression that the amount of money that could be added to a contract was possibly limited by 10% of the contract itself.
For a construction contract.
Okay, here's where I'm confused, okay?
Okay.
So on this contract here, like for $425,000, is there any limit to how many amendments in the future could come in to this particular contract, or is this a different thing altogether?
It's a different thing altogether. This is a professional services agreement and not a public construction project that's limited to 10% on change orders. So this contract could be amended up for these kinds of services. We don't anticipate that happening.
But it is possible.
But it is possible.
Okay, thank you.
You know, we do amend engineering contracts all the time in City Council.
Yeah, I see that on one of the ones down here, and that's what I was just trying to get. It looked like on some of them there were some rather large amendments to these.
I can recall one amendment that was larger than the original contract that I questioned, so it was appropriate. So thank you. It was a good question, Larry. Let's see, we don't have a motion yet. We need a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion made and approved, made and seconded to approve item A. Please cast your votes. And item A is approved. Item B is an amendment number 2 to contract for landscaping architectural services Streetscape and street improvements, multiple locations, an increase of $150,000. Any comments or questions? We have the expert here if we do have questions on these things. Have a motion made and second to approve item B. Please cast your votes. And item B is approved. Item C, amendment number 3 to contract for architectural services for the Myriad Gardens, South Entry, Restaurant, Cafe, Band Shell, and ancillary structures, pardon me. And I understand the cafe piece has been removed.
Yes, this amendment to this contract is to redesign the cafe into an open-air pavilion, and the amendment is for $45,800 in order to prepare those plans and specifications to be bid.
And the reason for the changing the cafe to a pavilion?
As a part of the work on the Myriad Gardens, we retained a restaurant and retail feasibility consultant, and they looked at the feasibility of the restaurant, the cafe, and the gift shop in the Myriad Gardens, and they found that the cafe, as it was configured as a cafe, was, in their opinion, not going to be economically feasible, and that it would be better to have it as an open-air pavilion that could be rented, that had water and electricity and those kinds of services. It would have tables and chairs for seating, but it would not be enclosed. It would not be have heating and air conditioning, those kinds of things. So that's the plan right now. We hope that in the future it will be possible to, if it's desired and looks like it is feasible in the future, that we can renovate or work on the cafe and turn it into a closed-in, work on the pavilion and create it into a cafe in the future.
I think it would be important to consider some kind of informal place where a person could go up and get a soft drink or a bottle of water or ice cream, as opposed to going into the restaurant and trying to do anything.
We do anticipate that there will be food service offered in this facility, probably through push carts or something else that are serviced by the firm that is the restaurant operator. So we do think that there will be beverages and food available at this pavilion.
Good. Larry, you have a comment?
I have a question. On your write-up here, Kathy, it says insufficient funding to exercise the option entered into the decision under the second paragraph under background.
Yeah, one of the things that has happened is that some of the bids for the buildings came in a little bit higher than what we anticipated, and by not building the cafe and building it as a pavilion, we'll save $700,000 or so. So that was a consideration.
Here's my question. In the Ford Center, for example, under Chairman Ryan's leadership, there's a budget that's very, very, obvious of how much money we've got to spend. But I haven't seen that necessarily here, and a lot of the things that we're asked to do have all been add-ons. Is there a budget of how much can be spent, or is this just kind of a...
Yes, we do have a budget for each project.
Okay.
Some of the difficulty on the Myriad Gardens is we broke it into different packages. So there was an overall budget, and then there was a package for the first phase of buildings and then the second phase of buildings, and kind of figuring out how those budget estimates broke out between the two packages just has been a little difficult to figure out from time to time. But yes, there is a budget on each project.
Yes.
As far as converting it to a pavilion and having water available and so on, that is very appropriate to what Trends and food service are doing right now, and having entrepreneurial mobile units and things like that. So it will encourage some diversity, can encourage flexibility in design and so on. So it's very much what is happening in the food service arena.
David, you have a question?
Just one additional comment that I think the notion that it would seem like if we had two sit-down places that almost compete against each other one way or another, just intuitively, but also it seems like what we're doing now is something that probably is more seasonally adjusted and will be episodic rather than continual, and that's a good way to prove in whether it has the value for full construction or not. So.
And I think that was one of the concerns about the feasibility of the operations of the cafe is trying to figure out the seasonality, the time of day, all of those different issues. But it is going to be near the children's garden, so we do think it's important to have some kind of food and beverage service there and a place to get out of the sun and sit down and have a place for those kinds of things.
Any other questions or comments? The chair would entertain a motion to approve item C. Second. We have a motion made and second. Any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the item is approved. Item C is approved. Item D is a change order. Number 1, amendment number 1 and final acceptance for project numbers to covering the relocation of storm sewer and water lines on Sheridan between Hudson and Robinson. An increase of $179,867.58. Comments or questions? This is a real milestone. This is the first project I remember that we actually finished on this particular part.
No, just the familiarity that until you get inside of those premises where all the different facilities are going, that you really don't have a sense of what it's going to cost. And experience that tells me that increases like this are to be expected, sadly.
Some of those utilities have been there for years, long after their useful life, and so we're having to go back and do some. That's a good point, too. Other comments or questions? The chair would entertain a motion to approve item D. So moved. Okay. Motion made and second. Any further discussion? Cast your votes. And item D is approved. Item E, waiving consultant selection procedures and approving the contract for consulting services, Project 180, program consultant services, multiple locations, and I understand this is a period of multiple years as well.
Yes, this is a multi-year agreement that we are recommending be entered into with Story Engineering. I think you all know that Laura Story has announced that she is going to leave the employment of the City of Oklahoma City and start her own engineering firm. And her primary focus will be on managing Project 180, and this contract will allow her to continue in that role as program manager and help us see the project through to completion.
Are there any comments or questions?
Kathy, it's just my sense that given that Laura has been living this for the last couple of years, that she's uniquely positioned, and so that's hence the notion of moving forward with the contract exclusively.
Yeah, that's correct.
So moved.
Second. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, if we didn't utilize Story Engineering, it wouldn't be Project 180. It would be Project 360 because we'd have to start from scratch.
Good point. That was well said.
Very good.
We have a wordsmith on the board. I think that's excellent. That's very good. All right. And before we had that comment, helpful comment, we had a motion made and seconded to approve item E. Is there any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And item E is approved. Thank you very much. Item F, ratifying and approving addendum number 1, awarding the contract to Action Safety Supply Company, Project 180 again. And this one is in the amount of $154,000. Are there any questions on item E? F, I'm sorry. F, we did E. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Hearing no questions, the chair would entertain a motion to approve item F. So moved. Have a motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions? Please cast your votes. Item F is approved. Item G is the final plans and specifications for the Myriad Botanical Gardens Pavilion. Kathy, any comments?
None except that this is the resulting plans and specifications from the amendment to the A&E contract that you approved just a few minutes ago, and this will allow us to get these out to bid so that we can make sure that the pavilion is constructed in a timely manner.
And the timing for the completion of our work in the Myriad Gardens is still on target?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
We'll be ready for the Arts Festival in spring.
Portions of the gardens will be reopened for the Arts Festival.
No. I don't believe that was the original promise, but that's okay. So.
The exterior gardens will be substantially complete. The buildings will not be entirely completed by then.
Well, we just need the space more than we need the buildings for that project. So.
That's right, yeah.
All right, is there any further questions or comments about item G? The chair would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion made and second to approve item G. Any further discussion, comments, questions? Please cast your votes. Item G is approved. The next item are general manager's reports. And we have in your packet a financial summary of what we've been doing. Are there any questions or comments on the summary? Good job on that. Okay. Very good. So this doesn't require any action. Receive the report. Okay. Now we have comments from the staff.
Quick question?
Sorry. Yes, sir.
I think in a very quick conversation I had with Brent, just right at the end, we were talking about QTSO, and you mentioned that was the pipe, company operation moving from Arkansas.
Yes, sir.
And you indicated that it looked like that one might be...
I talked to them a while back to follow up and see how they're doing. With the downturn in the economy, they have elected right now not to begin the construction of that facility. They own that facility here in Oklahoma City, but they had to reduce their staff in Arkansas, so they're not going to be adding any new jobs right now. But we still have the contract. They still have the opportunity to locate here. We still have our contract with them, but right now there's nothing going on.
And that leads me to my next question, but how long is it appropriate for us to hold as an allocation of $312,000 forecasted money that we were going to use to incentivize them?
Typically, we're starting in our new contracts. We're starting to have timelines, drop dead dates of 2 to 3 years, where if they have not shown any progress, we could take back the allocation or rescind our contract with them. So, but on this one, I believe it was a 5-year period. I'll have to go back and check, though.
So we keep it on the books in effect for 5 years or whatever that timeline it is, and at that point we have the option of
yes, sir,
releasing those funds to be allocated to somebody else.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
It would seem like that would be an insignificant problem until we run out of money. As we get closer and we exhaust our supply, our resources, then I think it's more important to focus in on these timelines and recalling the money that's not been spent so we can allocate it to someplace else. I think that's a good point is to watch as we go forward, to keep track of those.
Well, yes and no, Mr. Chairman, because last year, I still have a burr under my saddle on this, so I will say it, okay? We sold, about $20 million or $25 million in gold bonds? $29 million, all right? And I really wanted that money to go for the regular 2007 bonds for street resurfacing. And, of course, the reason was that we needed that money in there to fund the opportunities as they came up. So I think it behooves us to not have money allocated that's not going to go for economic development purposes, so we have a better picture of just how much funds we really need.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't mean to play down your concerns, but I do think that it would become a more pressing problem as we go forward. Now, are there any other comments or questions on the manager's report?
I'm just going to say we could ask them to voluntarily rescind the contract if we. That was the direction.
My question was for information, not to.
I just think we got to leave it alone until it becomes an issue. And I think we had experience with one project that we've sort of nursed along, and it's beginning to show real promise right now. Next item is comments from the staff. Wally, you're poised and ready to make a comment.
I do have one. In the outlet mall contract, there's a provision that provides that the outlet mall, the Horizon Group, can transfer their obligations to another entity if they meet 2 criteria. And they have sent a letter to the city manager expressing that they believe they meet the criteria set forth in the contract. And it's set out in the last paragraph of this letter what those obligations are. I'm passing this out. If you have concerns that you don't think that they meet what's there, you might want to express those to Kathy as soon as possible. Otherwise, I think Mr. Couch will, in the next few days, send a letter authorizing them to make the transfer to the other entity.
Will we have to have an official action to approve
No,
that?
the contract says there's no official action required. It's just if you've got an objection, we can state it now.
And it doesn't require any further at the council. I know periodically at the council we consider reassigning
Right.
rights and things. We
No.
don't have to do that here. Very good. So this, essentially, if there are no objections, we can complete this issue.
Right,
today.
just express them to Kathy, and
Okay.
if it was an issue, we could come back and talk about it, but right now, we don't think it is.
Everybody understand what we're trying to do, where we are? Good to explain to me. Yes.
CBL is publicly traded, but I'd be curious to know what the caliber of their properties, if they have the same quality standards that we're looking for Horizon to deliver, and if it is in parity or in comparable expectations that we had with Horizon.
We can do some research and let you know what kind of properties they own. They are one of the largest mall owners and REITs in the country, so they have quite a portfolio of properties that we can take a look at. But I think the good news is that Horizon has got their funding and has an equity partner, and this project is moving forward. So we'll get you that.
Mine wasn't so much as a questioning so much as to make sure that.
That's good. Good point.
I think whenever we bring up questions like that, it's not just for our purpose, I think, but for the public that would have any concerns that way, so thanks.
When it says it manages 162 properties, is that physically operating the retail stores in it? I mean, as far as managing the store's operations, like Simon Group does for Penn Square?
Yes.
Yeah, Larry?
I think there's another issue also that needs to be researched, Kathy, and that is one of the things that was said about Horizons was that they were supposed to be experts in the outlet mall market. This doesn't indicate any experience that CBL has in the outlet mall market. And is there a difference between operating an enclosed shopping center mall versus operating an outlet mall? And I think from previous information that I've heard, there is a difference. And so I think we ought to take a look at that also to see because they are going to be the managers of our outlet mall here.
I don't know that. They're part owner of it. They're 75. The limited liability company is 75% owned by CBL and 25% owned by Horizon Group. And I think what Horizon Group's expertise is in developing outlet malls, and they are the developer of this property still. So I think we can look into CBL's experience with managing outlet malls if we think they're going to be the manager, or find out the answer to that question about who's going to manage the facility.
Well, the letter here says CBL will serve as managing member.
Yeah,
And they've got
we'll just have to check
They got
what they mean by
75% of the action. Anything over 51% gives them the control.
But it does further go on to say that Horizon Group will serve as property manager following the grand opening of the project. So Horizon Group is
And that's what Mr. Rumpet said in our last conversation with him. He made that pretty clear, that Horizon will still be operating the mall.
You expressed some concerns. Do they raise the level of us waiting some more time before we agree to these assignments? Are you comfortable with the assignments if we go forward, or do you want to hold up on them?
Oh, we're not doing anything here today, are we, Kathy? We're just, this is, and Kathy said she's going to study, and I think Rhonda said, and I'm just saying some more in there. What the study shows would determine if there's any concern or red light, orange light.
So, Wally, don't reply yet. Give our trust members an opportunity to think this over, then get with Kathy and get the results of her investigations.
I was going to say, if Kathy, if she gets any information she wants to share by email, and if there's a need for us to get together, let us know. That would satisfy my interests.
Don't hold up the process. It's important to have forward momentum. Just due diligence.
Gotcha. Okay. Are there any other comments from the staff?
I just wanted to make one comment that I guess we could have brought up under the claims that were ratified earlier in the meeting. Yesterday, we completed the transaction to loan approximately $4.2 million to the Myriad Gardens Foundation to purchase some properties at Reno and Hudson. So that transaction closed yesterday, and the foundation does now own several pieces of property. And it was a very successful transaction, and that the funding is reflected in the claims that you ratified earlier, but that was what that was related to.
And the contract, it gives the city control over the development of those properties, which I think was really important.
Yep.
And so as we go forward, we can ensure the quality is what we think it should be, given the proximity to the new Devon Tower and the Myriad Gardens. So I think it was a great, well-structured contract.
And it went through the Devon Committee.
Yes, it did. Okay, are there any comments from the trustees? Comment from the public? Hearing none, we are adjourned.